Most people aren't exhausted because life is hard. They're exhausted because they're too useful. If you're good at your job, you get more jobs. If you're reliable, people rely on you endlessly. If you're emotionally stable, you become everyone's emotional support system. This is rarely called exploitation. It's usually called being valuable. But what if being useful is one of the fastest ways to be used up? We live in a culture that quietly teaches one rule: your worth equals your usefulness. From school to work to relationships, we're trained to ask, what can you do? What can you offer? How productive are you? And once you prove you're useful, the world doesn't protect you. It demands more. The most competent employee is often the most burned out. The kindest person is often the most taken advantage of. Being useful makes you visible, and visibility is dangerous. So here's a strange question. Why do some people survive longer careers without burning out, while others collapse even though they're more capable? Ancient Chinese philosophy noticed this problem over 2,000 years ago, and the answer was deeply unsettling. There's an old story from Zhuangzi about a tree. Not a beautiful tree, not a straight one. Its branches are twisted. Its trunk is uneven. Its wood is useless for building anything. Carpenters walk past it. They don't cut it down. They don't even look at it twice. And because no one wants it, the tree survives. It grows older. It provides shade. It lives out its natural life. Meanwhile, the straight trees, the stronger ones, the useful ones, are cut down young. This idea is called Wuyong Zhiyong. It means because it is useless, it is useful. Because it serves no purpose to others, it lives. This story isn't about trees. It's about people. In modern life, being useful means always available, always competent, always saying yes, always optimizing yourself. And that makes you harvestable. Your skills get extracted. Your time gets consumed. Your energy gets drained. The world doesn't destroy useless things. It ignores them. And sometimes being ignored is a form of protection. Now, this is important. Zhuangzi was not teaching people to be lazy. He wasn't promoting irresponsibility. He wasn't saying do nothing. He was warning against turning yourself into nothing but a function. There's a difference between being capable and being endlessly consumable. The danger is not usefulness itself. The danger is total usefulness. If you make yourself useful in every situation, your job will take more. People will expect more. Life will demand more. And very few will ask whether you can afford it. Sometimes the wisest move is not to show how capable you are. Sometimes it's to remain slightly inconvenient, slightly inefficient, slightly unavailable. Like that twisted tree. Not impressive, not optimal, but alive. The philosopher behind this story understood something we keep forgetting. What makes you valuable can also make you disposable. He wasn't teaching people to be useless. He was teaching them not to be used up. And in a world obsessed with productivity, that might be the most radical wisdom of all. Sometimes the safest place in life is just outside the spotlight. Let me explain what this means in practice. Think about the people you know who are constantly exhausted, not because they're lazy. The opposite. They're too good at what they do. They're too reliable, too skilled, too willing to help. And because of this, they become the default solution to every problem. Need someone to cover a shift? Call them. Need someone to organize the event? Call them. Need emotional support? Call them. Their competence becomes their curse. They've made themselves so useful that saying no feels like betrayal. And the requests never stop because the world doesn't reward boundaries. It rewards availability. This is the trap of usefulness. You prove your worth through service. And once proven, that service becomes expected, then demanded, then assumed, until you collapse under obligations you never explicitly agreed to. Zhuangzi observed this pattern in ancient China. He watched capable people work themselves to death, while less skilled people lived longer, happier lives. And he asked, why? What's the difference? The difference wasn't talent. It was visibility. The useful tree gets cut down. The useless tree gets ignored. And being ignored in this context is survival. It's freedom from extraction. Now here's where most people misunderstand this philosophy. They think Zhuangzi is saying, don't develop skills. Don't work hard. Don't contribute. That's not the message. The message is, don't make yourself totally consumable. There's a difference between having skills and being defined entirely by those skills, between contributing and becoming nothing but a resource to be extracted, between being helpful and being endlessly harvestable. The straight tree isn't wrong for being straight. It's just vulnerable. Its perfection makes it desirable. And being desired means being used. This is true for trees. It's true for people. Think about your workplace. Who gets promoted? Often the person who works the hardest. Who gets more work? Also the person who works the hardest. Promotion means more responsibility. More responsibility means more extraction. The reward for being useful is more usefulness required. You're not given rest. You're given more tasks because you've proven you can handle it. And the system optimizes for extraction, not sustainability. Zhuangzi tells another story. A man had a skill. He could make ointment that prevented chapped hands. His family used it for generations while washing silk in cold water. Their hands never cracked. A visitor heard about this and offered to buy the formula for 100 gold pieces. The family gathered and said, "We've been washing silk for generations and never made more than a few coins. Let's sell it." The buyer took the formula to a king and used it to help soldiers fight in winter without their hands failing. The king rewarded him with land and title. Same formula, different application. One person stayed small and poor. The other became rich and powerful. Most people hear this story and think, see, you should be useful to powerful people. You should scale your skills. That's how you succeed. But Zhuangzi's point was the opposite. The family washing silk lived peacefully for generations. The man who sold the formula to the king entered a world of war, politics, and power. He became useful to empire, and empires consume everything. One life was small but sustainable. The other was grand but dangerous. The question isn't which is better. The question is, do you understand the trade-off? Being useful to power means being absorbed by power. This applies today. You can be useful to your immediate community, your family, your friends, your neighbors. That's sustainable. Or you can be useful to systems, corporations, algorithms, markets. That's extractive. The difference is scale. Small-scale usefulness nourishes you while you nourish others. Large-scale usefulness drains you because systems don't care about individuals. They care about functions, and functions are replaceable. Here's the modern version of the twisted tree. The person who's good at their job but not great, who contributes but doesn't overperform, who helps but maintains boundaries, who's useful but not indispensable. They survive, not because they're lazy, but because they haven't made themselves totally consumable. They've kept something back, some energy, some time, some part of themselves that isn't for sale. The culture calls this underperforming. Zhuangzi would call it self-preservation, because once you become indispensable, you become trapped. Your usefulness becomes your prison. You can't leave. You can't rest. You can't say no. Organizations don't promote people to give them rest. They promote people to extract more value. The reward for excellent work is more work. And the cycle continues until burnout. This isn't cynicism. This is pattern recognition. So what's the alternative? Zhuangzi suggests cultivate strategic uselessness, not total uselessness. Strategic. Be good at things that serve you, not things that make you harvestable. Develop skills that create autonomy, not dependency. For example, learning to cook is useful to you. Becoming the person who always cooks for everyone is useful to others. One gives you freedom. The other creates obligation. Learning to code is useful to you. Becoming the only person who can fix the system is useful to others. One gives you options. The other makes you trapped by your own competence. Being emotionally intelligent is useful to you. Becoming everyone's therapist is useful to others. One helps you navigate life. The other drains your energy until you have nothing left. The pattern is clear. Skills that serve your autonomy are protective. Skills that make you essential to systems are extractive. The world will tell you to be essential. Zhuangzi says, be capable but not capturable. Here's a practical test. If you disappeared for a month, what would collapse? If the answer is everything, you're too useful. You've made yourself the load-bearing wall of other people's structures. That feels important. It feels like security, but it's actually vulnerability. Because load-bearing walls don't get to rest. They hold weight until they crack. And when they crack, they're replaced. Not mourned, replaced. The twisted tree doesn't hold up anything. That's why it survives. It's not essential to anyone's plans. So it lives according to its own nature. This is the freedom Zhuangzi points toward. Now I can hear the objections. But I need to be useful to make money, to advance my career, to maintain relationships. Yes, but there's a difference between usefulness and total availability. You can be useful during work hours and unavailable after. You can be helpful to some people and boundary with others. You can contribute without becoming the sole contributor. These distinctions matter. The problem isn't having skills or helping people. The problem is organizing your entire identity around being needed, because then you can't stop. Stopping feels like ceasing to exist. Zhuangzi observed people who couldn't rest because their identity was pure function. Remove the function, and there's nothing left. This is what he meant by being used up, not just tired. Empty. The alternative is keeping some part of yourself unavailable to extraction. Some time that's not monetized. Some energy that's not given away. Some skills you develop just for yourself. This is the useless part that keeps you alive. In modern language, hobbies that don't become side hustles. Conversations that don't network. Rest that doesn't optimize. Time that produces nothing except your own existence. The culture calls this waste. Philosophy calls it preservation. Here's the strange paradox. The most useful people are often the least free. The most successful are often the most trapped. The most needed are often the most exhausted. Because usefulness scales infinitely, but humans don't. Zhuangzi tells one more story. A tree grew so large that thousands of oxen couldn't move it. People traveled from far away to see it, but no carpenter would touch it. Why? Its branches were too gnarled to make anything. A student asked his master, "This tree is useless. Why did you bring me to see it?" The master said, "Look how it lives. It's useless, so it's free. It provides shade. It lives to old age. If it were useful, it would have been cut down long ago." The student understood. Being useless to others allows you to be useful to yourself. This doesn't mean laziness. It means choosing who and what you're useful for. It means not being available to every demand. In practice, this looks like saying no without over-explaining, not checking work emails after hours, letting some problems solve themselves, allowing others to be competent instead of always being the solution, being helpful selectively, not universally. The culture will punish this. You'll be called unhelpful, selfish, not a team player. Let them say it, because the alternative is being consumed until there's nothing left. Better be criticized while whole than praised while empty. Zhuangzi watched people destroy themselves trying to be valuable to systems that didn't value them back. He watched competence become curse. And he asked, what if the goal isn't to be useful? What if it's to be alive? Alive means having energy for yourself, having time that's not scheduled, having capacity that's not allocated, having a self that exists beyond what you produce. This is what the twisted tree represents. Life beyond function. The straight tree exists to be used. The twisted tree exists to be. One serves a carpenter. One serves itself. In a culture that measures worth by output, choosing to be is radical. So here's the question. Are you living like a straight tree or a twisted tree? Are you optimizing yourself to be useful or protecting yourself from being used up? Are you advancing in the system or preserving your freedom from it? There's no right answer. Some people want the straight tree life, maximum usefulness, maximum extraction, maximum impact before burnout. That's a valid choice if you make it consciously. But if you're exhausted, resentful, and wondering why your competence feels like punishment, Zhuangzi offers another path. Be less useful, not useless, just less. Be harder to extract, slightly twisted, slightly inconvenient, slightly unavailable. Let some emails go unanswered. Let some problems remain unsolved by you. Let other people develop their competence instead of relying on yours. This feels irresponsible. It's actually self-preservation. The world has enough straight trees. It has enough people working themselves to death trying to prove their value. What it needs is more people who understand the wisdom of the twisted tree. Not lazy, not useless, just unavailable for total extraction. Just protected by strategic incompleteness. Just alive in ways that don't serve systems but serve themselves. This is the freedom Zhuangzi points toward. In a culture obsessed with productivity, the most rebellious thing you can do is preserve energy for yourself. Keep some time unmarketized. Maintain some boundaries. Be useful selectively. Lie beyond your function. Remember, the straight tree gets cut down. The twisted tree survives. Your usefulness might be your greatest vulnerability. And sometimes the wisest thing you can do is be a little less perfect, a little less available, a little less useful. If this exploration of why being useful can destroy your life resonated with you, and you want more insights on protecting yourself from extraction while living meaningfully, please subscribe and share.